Okay, everyone. This is the start of the Vine Neighborhood Association Executive Committee meeting. Hold on. Working out the kinks. Committee meeting. We won't start for about another 15 minutes. This is the start of the Vine Neighborhood Association Executive Committee meeting. I'm going to work out the kinks. Committee meeting. We won't start for about another. Hi,
Hey Maggie, how's it going?
I think it's going okay. Well, I've got the live stream running. So everything we say should be going on YouTube right now.
It sure says that it is.
Okay.
Hi, Maggie. Let me. Oh, that was weird. I just heard myself. Are you listening to the YouTube stream too? Out loud? Is that?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm trying to figure out how to work out the kinks before I do it. So I got to figure out how to turn off the microphone in YouTube.
Are you listening to the YouTube stream too? That's so funny. I'm hearing myself from 2 minutes ago, and my voice sounds so much lower in real life than it does to me. I don't know. It always cracks me up. But yeah, it's working. Just had it open.
Okay. Oh, so I was able to pause the live stream, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to turn off that feedback.
The echo. If you have headphones, that will help.
Yeah, I probably do. Okay. This is why I wanted you a little early, because I was like, I need tech support.
All good. All good.
Great, by the way. It's gotten so long.
Oh, thank you. I know it really has. I'm due for a trim.
Do you like it long, or do you wish it was shorter?
I do like it long. When I was young, like when I was in high school, it was down to my waist.
Whoa.
And then I cut it up to like here when I was in college, and it kind of broke my heart in a way that I never really recovered from. I'm always like, I need to grow my hair back up, but then it's too much to deal with. But I don't know. I don't leave the house anymore, so it's whatever, you know.
Who cares? Nobody sees you. You can do whatever you want. I've debated about trying some kind of crazy color just to see what it would look like. Because who's gonna judge me now?
Totally. Nobody. Nobody at all.
I'm gonna go find some headphones then.
Cool. Sounds good.
I should have some. We have pairs for everybody around. All right. So hey, congratulations on the house.
Oh, thank you.
That's exciting.
Thank you. It is a rental, but it is a move nonetheless. So yeah, very excited. Absolutely unexpected. Would you like to hear the very strange tale of how it came about?
Yeah, tell me.
So Cal and I have been renting this apartment unit for almost 2 years, and it's great. And we are longing for a little bit more autonomy, and a little more green space. Sharing the laundry with 5 other adults has gotten a little bit tiresome. Among other things.
Underestimate like just being able to go do a load of laundry, right?
It's great, and it was great for us when we moved in 2 years ago, but now we're like kind of like, all right, we could use our own space, and we can afford it now too, that we've been saving together and stuff. And we were looking around back in October, which is when my landlord asks folks to confirm whether or not they're re-signing the lease for next August, which like it's 10 months of lead time, so that's a lot. But we looked around, we didn't really find anything we liked in our price point, and then we were like, all right, we'll just re-sign the lease. And then 2 weeks ago now, our landlord called us one evening and was like, I had a lease, someone who was supposed to move in this week fall through, and I think the house would be perfect for you guys. Do you want to come see it? And we were like,
Your
yeah.
own landlord that you already had.
We have
Because otherwise you're stuck in this limbo of how do I get out of my lease if you found the perfect place, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Cal
Oh
has
my
been renting with her, with the property manager for like 4 years at this point. We have a really good relationship with her, which is always a bonus. So yeah,
Right.
she called us and was like, I really need to get this property gone. This person was supposed to move in Friday, and it fell through. So would you guys want to come see it tomorrow morning? And we did.
Wow.
And it was perfect. So we are,
That's
well,
awesome.
not perfect, but it's damn near perfect for a rental property, and it's at a great price. So
Did you and your lady already live together?
we this is our first apartment we've had together. So yeah, we've been together about 4 years, and we've lived together for 2.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's gonna be nice. It's over at Oakwood, which is a change, a big change.
It'll be a different feel for sure. Kind of,
It will be.
Maybe a little bit more grown up than some of the rentals and attitude.
Yeah, totally. That's probably true. And we love Vine, but this place has a huge yard, huge yard. The house itself is quite small, but the yard is massive. So we are really looking forward to that. Have, folks over to grill out, and we have big plans to build a patio out of some pallets. And
nice. Do you have a puppy?
We would love to get a dog. It's in our life plan. And that could very easily happen at this place. We asked, and we were denied permission to have one at this location because it's a shared unit, which makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't want to hear someone else's dog barking either. So,
well, and I think too that sometimes having, hi Gwendolyn, like having people that have shared living, sometimes it's a younger set, right? But people usually who are renting a house by themselves are usually a little older, and sometimes that kind of implies a level of maturity that might go well with having a dog. All right, I'm super trying to get these headphones on.
All good.
He'll hear you though, so I feel like it didn't work.
How's it going, Gwendolyn?
Well, hello. How are you?
Good.
Doing well. Can't complain. I love
your hairline.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was going to say, I love your Raising Hope background. I don't think I have seen that before. Into it.
Yeah, I typically, have so much going on that I'm not on camera, but I actually am kind of having a slow moment. I got my second vaccine earlier, and so it's starting to
starting to feel it.
I took the rest of the day off because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I didn't have anything on my schedules except this today. So
nice.
It worked out great.
Yeah, well, I hope it's easy on you. I hope it's not too, hope you don't feel too much of it.
Yeah, everybody in my family did pretty good. So I'm hoping that, maybe it's in the genes and I'll do fine.
I didn't get a terribly bad reaction to it, to either one.
I was
kind of looking forward to it. I was like, I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to lay in bed. I'm going to be sick. Those kids are going to have to fend for themselves. And then I was like, darn it, I'm not sick. I got to get up and do all the things.
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of hoping something happens.
Yeah, right.
Give me just chill out for tomorrow.
Right? Yeah, the first dose, I was fine, and Kaylin got really sick. They always get really sick from vaccines, like everyone in their family does. But then the second one, they got sick immediately, and I was like, oh, I'm in the clear. I'd been taking care of them for like 5 hours, and then I got really sick too. And we've been together about 3-4 years. It was our first time, both of us alone in the house sick. I was like, oh, this is it's a formative couple experience here. We gotta move through, right? Like, we're both laying in bed like, you go get soup. No, you go get soup. But it was, I mean, it is a relief to know, that it's absolutely worth it, and that it passes, right?
Yeah.
And that it's not gonna hurt you. It just feels bad. So grateful for that. But
I'm kind of used to that.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys did a great job on this election thing.
Thank you.
Looks like there was a lot of moving pieces trying to do it electronically. It looks like it all came together.
It sure feels that way. I've been checking on it kind of periodically. We have 80 votes in right now, which feels really good to know that.
That's awesome.
That's
And the
that sounds like a
just
lot.
hit mailboxes like
it is, and it's been growing steadily. I'm such a geek for like data and analytics and stuff. When I got the Vine line, I checked it, and then I checked it every day after that, and they came in waves of people on the same street. It was wild.
What? That's
Uh-huh.
random.
Yeah,
I
it was
wonder if
very
maybe
fun to
that was
watch.
how the mailing went out, maybe?
It might have been, I don't know.
Well, maybe
Or
next time,
Okay, the mailing.
have a online option as well as in
Yeah.
person.
I think that both
Yeah.
that would be the best of both worlds. It's
Mhm.
you know, there's a certain way in which having it in person is more accessible, and for a certain group having it online is more accessible too. So I'm
Exactly.
excited to kind of report back on the findings when this whole thing is all over, and hoping that we can learn from it in the future. But yeah, it's been going smooth so far.
Hold
So
on with the Bluetooth on.
Cool.
Are you talking to Catherine in the car?
A great background, Gwendolyn.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you. How's everything going over there?
Oh, this must be connected to your phone.
Oh,
I was
that's
gonna say,
why.
it looks like
We're
it's
doing all right. Are you in tomorrow afternoon?
Yes, I'm good for that. I was telling
Okay.
everybody I got the shot of my second dose of Moderna, so it's
Oh,
on the
wonderful.
books. So I'm planning on doing jabs tomorrow. We'll see what happens, because we're supposed to be recording for our the video that we're doing for Jabs Awareness Month. We actually are launching our anthem. So
Oh, wow.
we have
Neat.
some folks that are going to be videotaping at Jabs tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll see you there. I'll be up there tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, if all things go the way I hope, then I'll come down a little early, maybe like around 3.
hello to Sarah and Chelsea. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome, welcome. I'm not sure. Clearly Maggie is busy in tech world right now, but I'm not sure who all we're expecting tonight. I guess it is only 5:30 right now. A punctual group. You love to see it.
Okay. I mean, I would sort of expect Brendan to be here. Actually, I'm surprised Sarah's here. I thought Sarah wasn't going to make it today. I'm happy you're here, Sarah. And I thought Eddie would be here too, but I didn't specifically touch base with her. I'm trying, my husband's in-house tech support, and he's trying to help me get the headphones going, because we have the live stream ready to go on YouTube, but when it's running, I get a feedback. So Aaron suggested trying headphones, but the headphones and the computer are not playing.
If the headphones are a no-go, Maggie, I can also recommend just putting the YouTube video on mute, or on the YouTube video, if you just drag the volume slider all the way to the bottom.
I can totally try to do that.
That should prevent it from, because the feedback is coming from, it comes out of the YouTube speaker and then back in.
Right. Oh,
Right.
that's a great idea. I was
So
actually trying to figure out how to just do that. All right,
I think you can just drag the volume to the lowest.
turn the live stream back on again, and then I'll turn the recording back on in here too, and we'll check and see that we don't get feedback. So I apologize if anybody gets some bad ear
I might
noise.
have just lost you.
Did you just turn me off?
I can, as the host too, I can mute you, Maggie, if stuff gets weird. So,
Can you guys hear me now?
yeah.
I can't hear them. And I don't, if I push the volume, it will. Oh, can it? All right, I'm gonna. Let's try this. I know if I turn up the volume,
Let's see.
sometimes
Maybe
it
there's a power tab
change
on
the
it.
Maggie, I muted you while you were figuring it out. So if you want to unmute yourself, we can see if it's working.
Okay. Erin, can you keep talking for a minute so that I can
of
get
course.
my volume right?
Can
Because I have
talk
to take
all
minutes
day
also.
about anything you need me to talk about, and for any length of time is what I can do. Is that working?
Oh, here. No, I'm not.
Not
Eddie's
working?
here.
Oh, Eddie did log in.
I can just barely hear.
Let me see, please.
I'm going to mute myself while we start.
Hi,
Hello, Eddie. How's it going?
good.
Just figuring out some, I wouldn't call them technical difficulties, but we are fine tuning the audio for tonight's meeting. Maggie's got a live YouTube stream that's going to be running. We're just figuring out how to make that run while we're also chatting and not have feedback. So
Cool. How you been?
good. I've been doing good. Yeah, hanging in there.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for so much patience, everybody. I'm going to turn on the YouTube with the muted. We're just going to hope for not noise and go from there. And Chelsea and Courtney, I'm so glad you're here.
I wanted to see your face. It's been a moment.
Yeah. Okay. Oh boy, I hope I remember how to turn this back on again. Oh, please. I now have the funny feeling that YouTube may have paused and recorded all those shenanigans and is now playing it on the live channel, which is exactly what I was hoping to avoid.
Oh, good.
I'm just gonna own the crazy.
The likelihood of many folks tuning in is probably pretty low. So I think it's probably pretty low stakes.
I hope so. And who's gonna be mad at us?
Low stakes goofery.
That'll
Okay,
go on the outtakes and gag reel.
I'm gonna.
Probably not funny enough to make the Daily Mail, so I think we're probably good.
All right. I think we'll call ourselves to order at 5:35. I've got us. Oh, Erin,
Hi.
I'm going to record, or would you like to record? Because I have made you the host since one of the things we want to do is test drive the voting, online
Mhm.
voting stuff. So we are not recording in Zoom because we have a Zoom account that records it, and then we're live streaming to YouTube at the same time.
Awesome. So let me ask you, do you typically record to the cloud or to your device?
I think it's in the cloud. And I did go in and clear out did some editing and cleared out some space because there was some concerns about us running out of space in the Zoom cloud, but I think
Cool. We are recording to the cloud.
awesome. All right. I am going to take note of everyone who is here. I see we have Sarah Ruggles. We have Courtney Kamen. We have Chelsea Vieri. And we have Gwendolyn Hooker, Eddie DeGraw, Margaret Wilson, Steve.
Maggie, should I change my name on here for record keeping purposes?
I don't know. I'm in here twice. Once as the neighborhood association, and I think who doesn't know Steve?
Yeah, but you deserve it.
You're
So
okay. And Aaron Bensinger.
I'll rename you. I got it.
Woohoo! All right. Did everyone get a chance to take a quick look at the agenda? Can I get someone to just make a quick motion to approve the agenda?
I did.
Or
I
if
would
there's
like
anything they want
to,
to add?
yeah, I'd like to move for an addition, or I guess a point of order, perhaps, is what that would be.
Good.
To perhaps after the test run of virtual voting platforms and before the review of special directorship candidates, discuss election certification procedures, including sort of accountability and oversight for removal of duplicate votes and certifying the final count, things like that.
All right. And you want to do that after the test run?
Yeah, I think that feels appropriate. But I'm amenable to moving it around in the agenda as it makes sense.
That sounds like a great idea. I've got it on there. Can I get a motion to accept it as amended?
I motion to accept it as amended. That's Eddie DeGraw.
I'm not going to stand on too much formality, and I'm just going to say, does anyone object to taking the agenda as amended, or have any additional amendments? Speak now or forever hold your peace. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Your window's over. We're going. All right. Our first thing that we need to discuss today is how we want to allot the 2-year terms versus the 3-year terms. Sarah Ruggles and Brendan Maloney, as the 2 people up for re-election who have had a 1-year extension to their traditional 3-year term, both offered to take the 2-year terms if they won their seats, no matter what their votes were. In the past, when we've had multiple years, like multiple lengths of terms, we've allotted them by whoever had the highest number of votes, got the longest term, and down to whoever got the least amount of votes but still got elected, got the lowest, shortest length of term. And Chelsea Vieri during the application process also indicated that she was looking forward to having a 2-year term perhaps. So I just want to open that up for discussion, see if people still stand there, and what do we all think?
I'm a very flexible, open individual.
I like that. That's a great answer. So Brendan is not here, but Sarah, how do you feel? Do you still feel like
Hi,
you're
everybody.
comfortable?
Sorry, I'm struggling a little right now because I'm actually driving, so I can't really like watch or interact much, but I will be home soon and I want to engage, but I'm trying to be careful as well. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so in terms of the lengths of terms and everything, yes, I definitely would like to stick to my previous commitment to serving out the remaining 2 years of a 3-year term should I win re-election. I know Brendan had committed to that as well, but that leaves at minimum a 3rd seat and, you know, and up to 2 seats statistically, you know, possibly, that would be needing to fill out those slots of the 2-year terms. And I definitely think it would be a simple procedure to go on precedent that we just do what we've done in the past, and that 3rd or 2nd and 3rd slots that we would be looking at would be appointed based on the, you know, the tiered amounts of votes that folks get. Unless anyone wants to propose any other ways to determine that. Or you mentioned one other person. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble following everything right now, but one other person, was it Chelsea you just said, or Courtney?
You just said my name, yes, Chelsea.
Opted to accept a 2-year term, or maybe would prefer. So if somebody else wants to prefer a 2-year term, we could maybe put that person in sort of a preferential slot should they win a seat. And then if there are remaining seats, 2-year seats to fill, you know, beyond myself, Brendan, and anyone who prefers a 2-year term, then we go based off of the votes.
Hello.
Well, I think that if
I got a question. This is Gwendolyn Hooker. Just if somebody could give me the background on why the terms are Is it so that there's never anyone leaving the board at the same time? It just, to me, seems like really, what's a good word? Complicated I mean, it just seems like there should be a simpler way. Just wondering why they were, I guess it doesn't really matter why they were stacked that way, but it just seems like if you run them concurrently, because everybody doesn't come up for election at the same time, you should still have a quorum based on the special directors, so that you wouldn't necessarily, everybody wouldn't be outgoing at the same time, basically, is what I would think is why they're stacked. But it just seems real complicated, and just make all the terms the same and keep moving. That's
Yeah.
my
Well,
suggestion.
To answer your question about why it's that way, it's exactly what you said. It's that we have 9 elected directors and we do 3 in, 3 up for election every year so that we don't lose like a big chunk of the board. So if we did have 6 3-year terms, 3 years from now, 2/3 of the board would be up for election again. And if we have a big turnover, that's like a real loss of institutional continuity. And so that was why when we decided to extend the 3 people who should have been up for election last year out an extra year, we kind of had to recalibrate, because otherwise it throws off our whole system of that. And technically this will be the first year that I know of, probably Steve, can you speak to this too, that we are going to try to appoint the special directorships at the meeting. Other times we've had sometimes a gap of like 2, 3, 4 months before we get all the special directors reappointed, because technically their terms expire at the annual meeting. And so then that leaves us with a gap where we would have only potentially 3 continuing board members. And that's a lot of turnover. So I know it seems complicated. And we have, actually, it's not
Turnover is
super uncommon to have a partial seat that's up for re-election, like someone resigns before their term is over. And so then there's like a 1-year or 2-year seat that's open. And so we've already kind of had this institutional tradition of like the person who gets the most votes gets the longest, and then we just go down from there. Yeah, Steve, am I right about that?
Yes, for the most part, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Specials have very rarely ever been appointed at the actual annual meeting. Bob Miller was forever one of the specials, so he was always appointed at the meeting. He was there. I'm not sure about historically the gaps, but I know that has in the recent past that there have been gaps that have been sort of difficult to incorporate into the board and board agenda.
One other thing I'd add also to aligning directorships terms is that recruitment and nominating is a lot of work, and we generally struggle to find like enough candidates to fill the number of seats that we have with it divvied up the way it is. And the idea of doubling or tripling our recruitment efforts sounds daunting, but I guess I'm also wondering if other people have had different experiences of the seats lining up on like other boards that you've served, because I've only experienced a staggered directorships with other boards, but maybe, I don't know, maybe other folks have had different experiences where it works out better in other ways. Maybe we can consider that.
Yeah, I actually have. That's kind of why I posed the question, only because we do so Mothers of Hope board, our board, they are staggered, but everybody gets the same terms. So meaning that everybody's going to get, whoever wins their election, their seat gets 3 years. It doesn't matter. But the terms of when people start. So some of our board starts, initially they started in October, which is our beginning of the fiscal year, and then in January. So essentially we wouldn't have another election because we only have an election 1 time a year, but the ones that go out are already moved into their seat. And then the ones, so some of our positions are not elected, kind of like how you have special directors. Some of the positions are either at large or they're by appointment. And those are the positions that are the staggered positions. The termed board members that come up every 3 years for a re-election, those are the only ones that are come up at a different time than the ones that are appointed, but everybody gets the same terms. So everybody gets 3 years whenever you come on the board. The only thing that happens different is that in January, when we do our annual meeting, that's when we actually either reappoint special board members or, people that are at-large members come on. But it just, most of the boards that I have sat on, I've never heard of people being allotted in a nonprofit based on how many votes they get.
I see what you're saying, Gwendolyn, and I think that maybe we were misunderstanding your question because it sounds like you're asking more about the fact that we have 2-year slots and 3-year slots. But if I'm right in thinking that that was the question to get at, this election is very unique in that because we deferred and delayed and then ultimately canceled last year's election, we have double the amount of seats this time. And so we're electing for what would have been last year's seats and this year's seats simultaneously. And therefore, in order to avoid 6 of those seats being filled for 3-year terms, which means that 3 years from now, we then have 6 seats coming up all again at one time, we decided instead of doing that to try to get back to our normal rotation by doing 3 2-year seats and 3 3-year seats. I hope that made sense for folks, because like the new people here are probably not knowing what we're talking about much either. But yeah, anyway, I'm home now. So thanks for bearing with me there, everybody. And thank you, Maggie, for hosting this meeting. But did that make sense?
I think it does. And I think it really looks forward to the future of what will happen in 3 years.
Yeah, Gwendolyn, I hear what you're saying, and I see how that that perception of like the number of votes, like determining the length of your position, and as like perhaps has some problematic aspects to it. I think is part of what you're pointing to. Also, am I correct? Yeah. Do you mind if we put that to be something that
I know
we
I
look at
used
going
this word a
forward
lot,
to figure
but-
out how to change it, because we have actually, and as far as my memory of when I've been on the board is that when we've had shorter terms, we've always done it that way. And I agree with you that there are some parts of that I would like to dig down on and try to find if there's a better way to do that, to deal with partial terms. But we have, the messaging on this has been pretty consistent about the 2 and the 3. And I'm not sure if shifting now at this point, like weeks before the election, after people are already voting, would be fair.
No, I'm not suggesting to change anything. I was just really wondering why, and I already know about the way that we extended, obviously, the time because of COVID, but it does have some problematic aspects into it when you're talking about awarding the people with the most votes for an extended amount of a longer term. It's not inequitable, but it's kind of biased, because you're saying that whoever gets the most votes is kind of better, so therefore they get to stay longer. And that is not really good. And I'm not suggesting changing it now. We know, I mean, obviously we're kind of too far into the game to switch it up, but something to look at going forward of how we can make that process a little bit better or different. I won't say better, a little different.
Well, I think one of the things that's exciting, and I think that the guests this evening are probably seeing this, is that everything's on the table and that we're not beholden to how things used to be, and that we've got really smart people in the room, and let's figure out a different way. And what worked for years, or what we thought might have worked for years, if we're finding a different way, let's give that a shot. And this has been, I just want to tip my hat to the folks that have put in the time on this, because I think this is just an extraordinarily difficult election to try to pull off. It's never been easy. It's always had problematic elements, and the complications of this last year have just been it could be overwhelming. So I just tip my hat to folks, but I want to encourage everybody who's here this evening to look at this as like, yeah, let's put it on the table and let's really take it apart and take a look at.
I appreciate the question too, Gwendolyn, because I really think that what you're asking probably has a pretty there's a path to the answer to this question, and this is a scenario that surely plays out on like thousands of boards all the time, and there's probably different ways that different boards handle it, and it would be easy enough to kind of look at some different models and see what best practices we decide are going to work for us. But yeah, we haven't really evaluated whether the way that that's historically happened is the only or best way to decide on how to fill those extra seats, because they're going to keep coming up even outside of this unique situation we're in right now. We've always had, at least every other election, probably an extra seat to fill. And so it's a thing to think procedurally about.
So can I propose, given sort of the content of that conversation in its entirety, that we, if Brendan and Sarah win their seats, that they assume 2-year positions. And in absence of that, we follow our old model of allotting them by number of votes to determine who gets a 3-year term versus a 2-year term. Can I maybe do a show of hands vote on that? I suppose I should get someone to make a motion. I'm a little, I have kids, I have minutes, and I'm trying to run the meeting, so please just give me your best grace. I'm doing my best to keep us on track here. Can I make that a motion?
As one of those affected by that, I will motion myself. If I do get elected, I consider a 2-year term. That's fine by me.
Second.
Was that Gwendolyn? Okay.
It is.
That just means I have to, if we do it the same way, go into one more Vine line. And I don't know about that, but we'll see.
Okay. All in favor indicate yes by raising a hand or verbally, or raising a hand with your little dot. Okay. Sarah and Courtney, I cannot see yours. I see Sarah's. Courtney, do you have a verbal response? Can we hear you? If not, drop something in the chat. Okay. I will record that as passed with Courtney abstaining because I do not have a response from her. Willing to change that if I hear otherwise. I would like to add a second piece onto this discussion, and that is that I have messaged everyone who is running and asked if they would be willing to stand for a directorship if they did not win a seat, a special directorship for 1 year for appointment at the next meeting if they did not win their seat. Maya responded that she would. My email was worded that if you objected to let me know. So since no one else responded, I'm going to assume that everyone is okay with that, and that at the meeting next week, the 25th, is that next week? I'm not sure. Just stand for appointment. So it's kind of like an election where no one is really going to lose because we all are excited to be here and we all want to do some hard work for the neighborhood association. And that labor is needed. And why not make it as fair as we can, given all these challenges that we have, and say we're running to determine if you get a 2-year, a 3-year, or a 1-year seat. So unless there are objections, we're just going to take that as our MO and do that as our vote. Does anyone think we need to vote to make that an official action, or can we just accept it as a de facto thing we're going to do? I see no objections. I'm just going to let that stand as it is then.
Well, yeah, and also anyone who is running for an at-large seat right now and desires to be considered for a special directorship, we really don't have anything to say about that. If they want to be considered for that, they'll be present at the meeting and they can nominate themselves for one of those seats, and we will administer the vote as we always do. So yeah, I definitely encourage everybody to be available for that. So also, as a side note to that, even if that extra, person were to pursue the special directorship, we still have likely one additional open seat for that, which, like you said earlier, we don't have to and haven't always had that filled right away. And we have talked about, trying to pursue folks from finance, folks from law, folks from different fields to augment our board in that way. But keep sending your nominations our way is mainly what I'm trying to get at for those special directorships, and invite folks to join us even for that meeting who might want to be considered for one of those.
I will give the caveat, as long as I don't serve somehow as long as Bob from Western. So
Physically impossible.
I think that moves us to our next.
I would like to call out that Courtney just posted in the chat. Can you explain what a special directorship does?
A special directorship, it has exactly all the same rights and responsibilities of an elected directorship, but it is appointed. Special directorships are appointed by a vote of the board, not a vote of the members of the neighborhood association, and they serve a term that expires at the annual meeting. So that's usually a 1-year term, although this year it ended up stretching into a 2-year term because we didn't have an annual meeting. And technically we're not really having an annual meeting this year, but we're kind of calling the meeting where we're calling the results of the election and certifying the election the thing that's serving in place of an annual meeting, given the challenges of COVID. Does that answer your questions, or do you want a little more detail? I don't know if I actually have any more detail. They're functionally equivalent.
Traditionally, they were for folks that didn't necessarily live in the neighborhood, but purportedly provided access or helped, with connections or relationships, like the aforementioned Bob Miller.
Courtney just popped into the chat with that. That's a perfect example, and thank you. So I think that unless anyone else has any other questions or comments about how to allot the terms, we will move on to Erin's test run for the virtual voting platform, which will be used at the next meeting to vote to appoint the special directorships and to appoint the executive committee.
Sure will. So I've never used this tool before, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to try it out. Oh my goodness, where is the option? Give me just 1 second, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm looking at the menu bar and I've seen the ability to do that before, but it is no longer present. I'm gonna do some quick Googling, perhaps. back in a
Yeah, well-
flash.
While we're waiting, I just wanted to say about that article in the Gazette that Gwendolyn was in, about the homeless sheltering and whatnot. Yeah, maybe you have more context, but it seems like everything's kind of coming to an end, and it would, if there's any way that we can support you or help support the efforts in Vine or keep supporting it, it would be nice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you lifting that up. That's really hot off. You guys caught me. I was trying to sneak a sandwich in there, but so yeah, I haven't actually read the article, although I've gotten a couple of emails about it. I have collectively with Stephanie Hoffman from Open Doors have wrote a grant requesting an extension for the project, hoping that that's going to get approved from the Stryker Johnston Foundation, hopefully. And then we will have some different criteria for the next 2 months. We started this with very low or to no barrier requirements for people to be in the project. The main thing was really to, get people out of the floodplain and off the contaminated land. Going forward, we are going to be more intentional about making sure that we're addressing folks' barriers and making sure that we have people that want to address the barriers and making sure that we are applying a more equitable access point so that folks are aware, especially people of color with children, that we're doing this and really having a better exit strategy in place in 2 months. So the ideal is that we will be able to, housing right now is at all-time low. I'm sure everybody knows that, but trying to make sure that, some of our most vulnerable populations have a strategy and a plan once this thing wraps up, because we won't have enough affordable housing built by the time the extension is up. So we're just looking at some creative ways to figure out what to do next. So if you know anybody that has 4 or 5 bedroom houses, we are definitely in the market for looking for houses to purchase and trying to put people in housing as opposed to paying the astronomical amount of money that we're paying right now. Thank you for lifting that up, Brandon.
Yeah, and my neighbor just sold their 4-bedroom house. Otherwise, I would off market too. So,
Gwendolyn, I'm not sure if you saw this, and I'm not sure how many other attendees this evening read my report, but we received an offer on 913 South Westnedge. The other 3 properties were I guess purchased earlier this year, and so the Westnedge Court Association is being sort of disbanded. But that's a 4-bedroom house. So there's I think if you were interested in that conversation, we could definitely have it. It has a octopus furnace. There's a lot of things going on over there that need to be tweaked in the future, but we own that parking lot as well. And there are 3 adjacent properties. So that's a 4-bedroom that might be something worth discussing in greater detail.
Yes, I can say that I actually brought that up briefly in our partner meeting today. And we're definitely interested in having that conversation. I've seen the email that you had sent out.
Oh, good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so,
I think with all the partners involved, we can do it. Yep.
awesome. Avon's calling.
So coming back to the test run of the live polling, there were 2 conditions according to the Zoom Help Center that I was not aware of, and that's absolutely my mistake. Sorry for not being prepared for that tonight. But unfortunately, only the original meeting host can edit or add polls during a meeting. Maggie was initially the host of the meeting, not me. And the meeting must be either a scheduled meeting or an instant meeting using your personal meeting ID. I'm not sure if either of those are the case for this meeting because I'm not the one who scheduled I I don't want to, I want to make sure that we're being respectful of everybody's time in terms of just trying to figure stuff out. But looks like Maggie has taken the hostship back. So we'll see if she can figure out how to start a poll. I am confident in my ability to like create a poll and manage it during the live meeting. I just did not know that I wouldn't be able to create one right now because I'm not the VNA Zoom account. So good to figure these things out ahead of time.
Thank you, Erin, for doing that. I have full faith in your competency in pulling that off when we get to that meeting. I wanted to add a few comments about just going back quickly to, and well, I guess I'm seeing it as like the next thing in the agenda, but also maybe the last thing we talked about, and connected to the thing after that in the agenda. It all kind of comes together, but as far as the special directorships go, another purpose of those directorships and reason that we have those 4 seats available in addition to the 9 at-large seats. I feel like the intent, part of the intent behind having those seats is, and the reason they're designed as appointments rather than just candidates, you know, voted in at the membership meeting, is that the it's partly like the responsibility of the board to identify its own needs, its own shortcomings, its own goals, and assess that regularly, and then try to maintain space for filling those seats with folks who are going to bring needed skills at that time. And they're 1-year appointments and reappointable indefinitely, because sometimes those needs and those identified skills will serve the board for a certain time, and then things will shift, and then we'll have new needs and new skills that we'll need to bring on. So hopefully that helps contextualize the intention behind special directorships. Another note behind that too is that because they are 1-year appointments, I think largely because they're 1-year appointments at a time, and because they're not voted in, the special directorships, the only functional difference, which it was mentioned before, they are functionally the same. There is one functional difference between special directorships and at-large directorships, and the only difference is that special directorships are eligible to be considered for treasurer or secretary officerships, but not for the chair or vice chair officerships under our bylaws. Sorry to digress, but I wanted to just add that to the conversation. And I see that we have maybe more of a discussion about that coming up. So.
Cool. I think as far as Maggie and I were having a bit of a side DM conversation over Zoom, and I think that she and I are going to have to regroup outside of this meeting to make sure that all of the appropriate settings are set up, so that we can test run a poll. Hey, Jeremy.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no
you
problem.
Caught us right in the middle of some super fun technical difficulties, so welcome.
Oh.
But yeah, so I think I don't know. Do I need to make a motion to suggest that Maggie and I test the poll separately? All right, cool. We'll just table that.
We'll just move on to the next thing, which is
Sounds good.
You wanted to add a discussion of how we're going to certify the election results.
Yeah. So that was something that I asked to add to the agenda at the top of the meeting for folks who have joined a little bit late. Just to kind of give a full recap of where we're at in the interest of over communication. The election committee this year consists of myself, Maggie, and Eddie. Maggie is up for election and Eddie and I are not. So we decided as an election committee that Eddie and I would be the ones to manage the election virtually behind the scenes, so that Maggie isn't tempted by the spreadsheet. and all it entails. That said, I wanted to kind of have a group discussion or get some group input over what most effective and transparent and accountable ways to certify the election are going to be. I have been keeping tabs on the votes as they've been rolling in, which has been a delight. 80 people have voted, or we have 80 unique submissions, I should say. 77 people have voted, because we have some duplicates, and we also have some votes that have been submitted by people who do not live in Vine, and therefore are not eligible for their votes to count. So before making any changes to the votes that have been added, want to make sure that we are just communicating transparently about how those are going to be handled, and who is responsible for handling them. So I suppose I will start by saying that what I had in mind was that Eddie and I could convene perhaps after the voting window has closed and before the votes are announced, to have the two of us go over the spreadsheet together and sort of use our best judgment to eliminate votes who don't qualify. Gwendolyn, that is a really good point. Gwendolyn has messaged the chat. Do they have businesses in the Vine? That is a good question. Which reminds me that I should say,
actually one of the things that are asked. It says, do you live, work, or own property in the Vine Neighborhood Association? So I mean, I suppose there's like a narrow window where someone might like own a business, but not the property that the business is in, and not work at the business.
It's possible.
But that would be like that's a pretty small, like, they would have to be working pretty hard till it'd be like, yeah, I have a business there, but I don't work at my business and I don't own the building that the business is in. I guess we could.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I guess, no, you're cool. You're cool.
Right back to you, Aaron. Sorry.
It's all good. So very good point. And I guess I should say that in the virtual like voting thing, we ask people to affirm that they work, live, or have business or whatever in the Vine, yes or no. And everybody who voted affirmed yes that they do. And then a handful of people submitted an address that is not in Vine. I think we just asked, what's your address? So that could have been vague. So I guess one option is that we could just keep all votes regardless of listed address and just trust that everyone who affirmed that they reside in Vine does, or that they are eligible does. Another option is to send emails to everybody whose address didn't check out and ask them to verify an address, just ask them specifically and verbally one more time, like, the address you listed isn't in Vine. I want to give you a chance to give me an address that is in Vine, or to confirm that you do live in the Vine neighborhood. So those are some possible options.
I'm looking at the web form right now.
Mm-hmm.
And on the main, like before you get into the ballot, it asks you to confirm, yes, I am a resident property owner and or employed within Vine. If you do that, then right after that, it says, the wording is, what is your address or residence? Sorry, what is your address of residence or employment? And then you plug in your address of residence or employment. And then it takes you right to the ballot, where it doesn't ask you any other questions about like, your personal information. So it does feel like the ballot is pretty clearly in that space where it asks for your address. If you work in Vine, then very likely you're going to be putting your work address into that space, your Vine work address, I would think. But I don't know, are there, that's what I'm wondering. Are there scenarios outside of the wording of that question that are gonna create an issue?
I think it's worth checking in. I think that I feel confident and comfortable divulging this specific information because of who is present and sort of the laughability of it. But one of the people who voted and listed an address not in Vine was Eddie. and obviously Eddie has business in Vine because Eddie is on the VNA board. So there absolutely are those gray area cases. And so I suppose I would say that
I actually don't own that business anymore, but I do work. My building blocks job is in the Vine. So I didn't know if I should have put the community garden that I work in, because that's where I work.
Mhm.
I work on. So we don't have an office in the Vine, and yeah, but I
Totally.
don't. So yeah, that makes sense. I was wondering if I was who everyone was talking about.
It's not just you. There are a handful of others as well. So I think that's sufficient use case to say that, yes, we should either just take everyone at their word or check in. I think my preference would be to check in via email and just double check with everyone, like, hey, you submitted this address. Can you provide an address in Vine? Or like, will you affirm for me now over email that I followed up? Do you meet these requirements? And if they say that they do, then we can just trust them. I'm not interested in doing any more sleuthing work than that. That I think is going to be my recommendation at this point. I'm also open to other options or opinions.
Would it be do the two of you think that it would be doable to basically create a short list after you do your preliminary certifying of the results, after all is said and done, to just kind of like create a short list of like which ballots were submitted that were voided or nullified, or how many of them there were at least, and just kind of report that information to the board along with the results?
Yeah, we can make that information transparent. So the way that the form is working right now, and apologies if this is duplicative information for some here, but the ballot is, or the online form rather, is submitting all information into a Google Sheets, a spreadsheet. And so we have that. I'm actually in the back end right now color coding everything as it comes in. I have different colors for duplicates and folks whose addresses are outside. I also am keeping all of the names and email addresses whited out. So anybody who peeks into the sheet can't see anything, or can't see specifically who voted, but that information does still exist. So I would be happy to produce any kind of report that anyone on the board would like. All of the data is there.
Thank you so much. I just feel like that's going to be really useful as we like get to next year's election and try to decide whether this was like a better, like a easier, more inclusive, or like maybe a more problematic, like maybe a harder way that we're doing our election for the first time. So I really appreciate you guys being willing to kind of like agglomerate that data and present it, and just kind of like let us know, how many duplicates did we get, and how many like silly, like how many Bugs Bunny votes did we get, things like that, like, or just things that you just couldn't figure out, blanks maybe, or something, I'd love to just be able to know whether this went off smoothly, and just like how many problems came up. Thank you.
I'm going to make you so many pie charts. I can't wait. Cool. So I think coming back to there are sort of a few questions, some of which are still a little bit abstract about certifying the election, but I guess I would want to go ahead and I don't know if a motion is the appropriate way to clear this, but I guess I would like to formally recommend that the way that we deal with addresses outside of Vine that are submitted is a follow-up email asking to confirm Vine employment, property ownership, or residency. Is anyone opposed to that?
No, I think that's a great idea. I suggest a more open-ended wording, because one thing I want to do is make sure, I feel like people who hang out in our neighborhood and maybe do not have a formal employment are still part of our community.
Sure.
And I think that an open-ended question of how do you feel that you qualify to vote? Or how do you feel that you qualify as a constituent of the Vine Neighborhood Association? And maybe is the question, if that's not too confusing. Because I think if we make it really specific, there are people who would say, like, I don't own a house and I'm not formally employed here, and now I can't vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
that's
Like
a
if
fair
someone's
consideration.
unhomed, but they're unhomed in our neighborhood,
That's fair.
I don't want them to feel like they're not part of our neighborhood. I
That's
guess
true.
what I'm trying to
I
say.
love that. And in addition to that, like when we kind of looked at this case study of Eddie's vote being a gray area, you know, right off the bat, it made me think, well, how many other people maybe work every day in Vine and their employer and their paycheck maybe doesn't necessarily come from Vine. And in spite of that, they spend every day contracting, working on houses and fixing up our houses in Vine. You know, does that person not have a stake in our neighborhood and opinions about which way we should go with things? And then there's maybe a lot more gray areas than we think as far as people who identify as Vine constituents. Like, what about retired people who don't work but volunteer a whole lot? And maybe they've volunteered with a project or an organization in Vine for years. And would they be able to answer that question as a yes, I affirm, you know? So I love the way you're kind of thinking open-ended about that.
Yeah, and I think that when I think of the opposite use case, like when I think of someone who has voted that's not in Vine, the situation that I'm imagining is someone who's close with the candidate. Like, you know, if someone, I don't know, a friend of mine that lives in Grand Rapids, if I were running, was like, oh, Erin, yeah, I love her, I'm going to vote for her, and just isn't super familiar with Kalamazoo, or, you know, was just happy to just click the yes, whatever button to make it go through, is kind of the, I imagine it's probably just like a gentle and benevolent ignorance. Anybody that, you know, submitted an address that isn't in Vine. And so how about a follow-up email that says, hi, thanks so much for your vote. We noticed that you submitted an address that is not within the border of Vine. Would you mind? But we'd still love to, you know, count your vote if possible. Could you let me know a little bit about what your connection is to the Vine neighborhood? And if someone is like, yeah, I go hang out there all the time, I care a lot about it, you know, or, you know, I'm unhoused and that's where I stay or where my family is, versus if someone's like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize that I had to live in Vine to be there, which, like, you know, how could you miss it? But it happens. How does that feel? Cool. Let me write all this stuff down. Oh, I guess we have minutes, so maybe I don't have to, but I'm making myself a to-do list.
I'm doing my best to get it down verbatim.
Cool. Sweet. So the next thing I wanted to ask was duplicate votes. So far, we have 3 people who have submitted using the same name and same email, same address, and same ballot. Could just be a machine duplication. I would like to ask permission to delete the second most of each of those submissions when Eddie and I certify the voting.
Is it possible there's more than one person in that household?
Yeah, so I'm talking about
it
cases where
seems
the
like they
person
would at least
has
change their name, but
same name, same
Yeah.
email address, same address, and same ballot. Yeah. So yeah, there are more than a few people who have gone from the same house, but they're typically different names. We have yet to have multiple names with the same email or multiple. Yeah, it's just 3 duplicates, and I imagine it's probably like the computer goofed, if I had to guess.
I'm not gonna lie, I was not totally sure if I voted or didn't vote, and if I voted twice, I would apologize, but it would not have been on purpose. And I bet there's
It's
other
not you.
people who are as absent-minded and low on brain cells as I am that would do the same thing.
it totally happens. But I guess I wanted to just ask permission for, or, you know, make sure it's cool with everybody that, you know, in the case where it's same name, same email, same address, same ballot, that we delete the second most and then make a note that we did that. Cool.
I would totally agree with that procedure if every single detail is exactly the same. I
Mhm.
guess I would also want to say, I'm not sure if it's come up yet, but if it did come up, that we were kind of talking about the review of the ballots with addresses that call the ballots into question. There could maybe be a scenario where you would get a ballot that has an email address that would call it into question. Like you just said, I'm realizing that I might even do this by mistake myself. I have a bunch of different email addresses. Like if it was not my own board, I probably would be subject to forgetting. And there's this big open window. We've got maybe 3 weeks to vote. Maybe somebody goes in there and they vote, and then 3 weeks later they can't remember they voted, or innocent mistake. And then they go in and but they might use a different email and then vote again. So if you did get any ballots like that, I would suggest that we go through that same process of just emailing them, maybe to confirm, you know, there's one person at this address who intended to vote, or something like that. Does that,
Mhm.
or maybe that's not even a scenario we need to consider, but it's just something I thought might be a possibility.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hear that. We have yet to have that happen, but it absolutely could. I love the idea of having sort of the contingency for ballots that seem like they might be a duplicate, like anything that raises a yellow flag, essentially, like, oh, this might not be a good faith vote, to have kind of a standard email template to follow up, to be like, hey, we noticed that you voted twice. One ballot said this and one ballot said that, or, you know, we noticed that you voted twice using different emails. Which email would you like us to keep? Or, you know, which vote would you like us to keep? Or something along those lines. I mean, we're not gonna, like, it's not like anybody who voted twice doesn't get their vote counted. It's like, we just need to make sure that the right votes are being counted the right number of times. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. And one other thing I wanted to add about the email follow-up procedure is, as someone who emails large and or small groups of folks asking for their responses quite frequently,
Mhm.
I would suggest that we put a deadline into the email for their
Sure.
response, and just say something like, you know, gently at the end, like, if we don't hear from you within X number of time, then we will have to nullify your ballot, or something like that.
Sure.
Because otherwise, what you might end up with is what you thought was going to be a corrective procedure ending up creating more of a headache when you've sent this email, and now you're like not sure at what point you aren't going to wait to hear back from the person.
Yeah. I like the idea of setting a deadline. I also like the idea of, oh, maybe not, never mind. Yeah, we have yet to have anything super weird happen. You know, the addresses outside of Vine and duplicate votes were both like very much expected, and everything seems pretty above board. Like, everything seems like a good faith attempt to vote once. If we have anything outside of that, how should we handle it? Is it a matter of the election committee meets and decides how to handle it? Do we just, I mean, because we have to, you know, voting closes the 21st and then we certify by the 25th, right? Personally, I feel like between Maggie, Eddie, and myself, keeping Maggie still in the dark about specifics about whose votes they are and who they voted for, I feel like between the three of us, we can use our best judgment to make educated decisions about handling votes, and handling follow-ups in cases of weirdness. But I'm also open to other opinions. and other sort of plans for how we would handle such things. So.
Again, I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I think we'll, probably trust your judgment. But I would also ask, like when you're that's a good point about just weird, unpredictable things that might happen. If you could just, I guess, report that stuff back to us after the fact and just kind of let us know what came up. If there was something that threw you for a loop, I think make your best judgment, but then we'd love to kind of hear about what can and does go wrong during this kind of election.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking that it would be a great idea too, and I'll have to, Eddie, you and I should connect about this separately, about coming up with a time for to go over it or figure out how we're gonna certify everything, the two of us. But I would be happy to have the election committee create a post-election report for just the board. Perhaps we can, give the give our results and give our breakdown of what we decided to delete, what seemed fishy. And then I'm happy to be audited in the days before we confirm it, if anything seems to require a second look. I feel like that feels like a pretty thorough and transparent way to do things. Any objections?
Thank you
Do
so
you want to
much.
schedule some sort of pre-certification meeting?
Yeah,
before the
maybe.
25th? Like sometime between the
Yeah.
25th and the 25th to we can just call it in maybe?
Just get on a phone call. Yeah, I think the three of us, perhaps over email or over text or over phone, later this week can come up with a plan for when we're going to meet and just make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. I just want to make sure that we are as transparent as possible as we endeavor on our first ever virtual election, because Lord knows there are a lot of things that can get weird. So, but so far so good. So.
Yeah, Aaron, the only thing I would like to hear about is if you guys make some change that catastrophically changes the outcome, or so, if there's something that is outcome changing. That's
Totally.
the only thing that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I have been deleting all the votes for you that come in. So.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, no. Yeah, we'll definitely keep everyone aware if anything but I mean, yeah, actually that's a really good point, because I have not broken down things enough to say that if any removals would affect the outcome. But I mean, realistically here, we're looking at 7 people for 6 spots, and whoever doesn't get it is getting a special directorship. So it's really going to come down to how many years folks are serving is really what it is. And so I'm glad that we're going to have all the data in case there are any appeals after the election is certified. But
it's good for the future, though.
Any hanging chads or anything
No,
like that?
yeah. Aaron, I so appreciate you being willing to do all that work to for you guys to put together a report. I really do actually think that, and I think Brendan, you just kind of said that for the future. This is the first time we're doing our election this way, but I am kind of exuberant about the turnout we've already had, considering we're still over a week out from the deadline. If we've got 70 something votes already, then this could very well be the highest turnout we have ever had for a membership election, and could end up being the way or a way that we want to keep going forward with indefinitely. So having that report for us to I really feel like it could be something that this board refers back to for years and gleans from and learns from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's been going great so far. And we were kind of chit-chatting, Gwendolyn, Maggie, and myself were kind of chatting before everybody got on, but we're talking about the, personally, I think that, in future years when there is more energy and more physical safety and meeting in person, having kind of a joint approach, allowing people to cast votes in person as well as virtually, I think could be really great for getting just a wider wider array of people voting, because I remember the VNA meeting where I was elected in, me and my friends walked in No Duffy's and we were like, this is not our Vine neighborhood, and up until that point, that was who was voting. And so I think that getting the QR code and the link in the mailer was key. I was also saying earlier in the meeting that I have been kind of checking in on the results periodically. And the day that I got my mailer, I started checking every day, and I was watching results roll in by street. Like all of Osborne Street voted on the same day. So, well, not all of, but much of. So very cool. Fun data analysis. We'll keep it in case anybody wants to do their like undergraduate thesis on it in the future or whatever. But I'm feeling pretty resolved about election certification stuff. Any other kind of aspects of that we haven't discussed that we ought to before we move on? Cool. Crickets of approval. That's all I had. I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna shut my mouth for a little bit. Pass the baton back to Maggie.
Okay, so we've discussed a little bit already about how we're going to handle the special directorship candidates. Steve, can I give you one more small task? Steve reached out and confirmed that Aaron
Absolutely.
Harris and Gwendolyn Hooker both would like to stand for reappointment. And so then that
Yes.
leaves us with 3 confirmed candidates for the 4 seats. Can you, given that the 3rd person will be from people who are already running and have already submitted materials that everyone's had a good chance to review, I don't think we need something additional from them, but maybe given that we have new people coming in who won't be familiar with all the great work that Gwendolyn and Aaron have done, we should maybe ask them to submit a couple sentences for everyone to look at before the meeting so everyone's prepared to vote on that. Do you mind reaching out and just asking them to maybe send in, maybe not necessarily a resume, but just something that's in the same vein as the write-ups for the election, for the elected seats?
Absolutely.
Okay. If we can, between the bunch of us, dig up a 4th person, it would be great to have the whole 13 of us ready to go. And we will do the appointment of the special directors before we do the EC vote. So that means that they can both vote for who goes on the EC and run for seats on that themselves, which is something, Steve, that you had mentioned. So I don't think we have anything more we need to talk about with that. Does everyone agree? Yeah, okay. Then the last thing is the election of the executive committee. I don't think, unlike years past, where there's usually, I think, been some discussion of who wants to do this and who wants to do that. And, we have some ideas about who's interested in filling certain positions. I'm not aware of much of that chatter really having happened. And the other sort of mode that people end up on the executive committee was the way that Aaron and I ended up, which was when we first got elected and we were sitting at a table and it was thrown out like a stinky fish and everyone stared at the table across each other and there was an immense social pressure for someone to pick up the stinky fish and run with it. So I don't know how this part's going to play out, and I'm just hoping that maybe there'll be people who feel inspired and called to step into spaces and things that they haven't done before. Because I know that I'm probably ready to be done with being the secretary. And right now, Sarah's doing double duty as chair and treasurer. And I think maybe her heart's calling her into treasurer more than chair. So we will have space open. And Eddie's been co-secretary, and maybe she'll be wanting to step into that. Maybe we'll want to also consider doing more co-appointments, which we do have space for in our bylaws, to have sort of a shared responsibilities in those. So I want everybody to kind of think about that on the way into it. And we have a pretty good procedure already laid out for doing the voting, but it is based on paper ballots. But I think that will transfer over just fine to the virtual voting platform whenever we showed it out. So I don't think we have too many knots to sort out about this, but I just wanted to put it out there, see if anyone had anything they wanted to say or anything they thought we should consider that we haven't thought of already.
Yeah, I think it would be good to send out kind of role descriptions via email. Did we? Yeah.
I think I just lifted them straight out of the bylaws, so they're kind of dry, but
yeah. Okay, then
for other people read stuff.
Yeah, and to make sure
I think
everybody
I sent out the
knows
policy too that was already written.
I wanted to ask. Oh, sorry. Oh, I wanted to ask about the election, the officer election, and how, because we had talked about doing that digitally, and I have been told there is a way to do secret balloting in Zoom, and then there are a handful of other ways to do sort of like digital, real-time virtual balloting. But I have not administered one of those. So I guess I just wanted to make sure that at this point, that was one of the things I wanted to make sure of the most distinctly, is that we do have a plan in place for administering the officership election, and deciding what platform we're going to use and who's going to administer it. Because when I went through the procedures, because I was going to email those out to everybody, and I started reading through them, and I started realizing that almost literally every piece of what we wrote into the procedure is going to be very different from how we do it this year. So I just didn't want to send that out and then confuse everyone by saying, here's our procedure, but we're going to actually be doing this, 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 and this, which is all pretty different from this. So
yeah, Sarah, I can I can speak to that. So there was a block earlier in this meeting where we were going to be testing out the virtual polling. And I think I'm not sure if you were in your house yet at that point, but we had a little bit of a back and forth because there are a handful of requirements to get that set up that we were not aware of, that we were not able to meet at this meeting, up to and including that the original meeting host has to be the one to edit the poll, to create the poll, and that there are specifics around how the meeting can be scheduled in order to work it. So Maggie and I are going to take some time outside of this meeting to make sure that everything is configured and do a test run on it. But the game plan is to use Zoom's sort of in-app polling function, and for me to be the one facilitating, since I have no skin in any game.
Thank you. Yes,
except for care for the future prosperity of the Vine Neighborhood Association.
Thank you so
much. I don't
much.
have any stake in it.
Totally did not make the connect. I did hear you guys talking about that, but I was not quite fully present at that point. So
good. Yeah, that's the game plan. So I feel confident in our ability to handle that. I do have a backup sort of online polling tool in mind if we're not able to get the Zoom polls one to go, but yeah,
great.
Yeah, we should have that covered.
And I also wanted to reiterate what Maggie said about transparency and kind of like being collaborative, I guess is the word I want to throw out there about our officerships for this upcoming year. I really want to encourage everybody who's interested in any officership that you're eligible for, please consider it. Please know that the more people we have interested in each position, the better, of a leadership committee we're going to end up with. So like run for all of them if you want to. I will also try to like set the example of being as transparent as possible, as to say that I am willing to run for another year as chair, but it's not like my ideal scenario. I would love if there was someone on our board who wanted to step into that leadership position. And I would also love even if there was somebody who wanted to step into a co-chairship, like you said. I don't see why we can't expand our horizons and just be as inclusive as possible with collaborative leadership on this board. I love the ways that we have already moved in that direction. But yeah, I mean, chair, vice chair, or treasurership responsibilities would all be on the table for me. But I would just also really love to hand more and more, leadership into the competent and more diverse voices of other folks who are ready to step into that stuff on our board. So do it, folks. Even if you're brand new, I will say, like, even if you're brand new, think about it. Think about a co-officership at minimum, or just, use your skills. So.
Is there any conflict of interest of people? Oh gosh, it's so bright. Of people who, like, for example, Gwendolyn, I mean, we're a fiduciary, and if she was our treasurer, is there any little bit of conflict of interest with specific people assuming specific roles? I mean, that's the one I can really think of, but just a thought as well.
It's a good thing to keep in mind. I feel like I personally trust folks to choose wisely, and then at the next level, trust folks to call it out if they see something that seems fishy. And I feel like that's probably an appropriate contingency, but that's good to note, I think.
I totally agree. I just think if we get audited or something by by someone, and then they see something like that, it could make us look in a bad light.
That's fair. I think part of that too is going to come down to a question I have, which I apologize if this has been addressed already, but are we asking folks to submit their candidacy for EC roles ahead of the meeting, or are we planning on putting everyone on the spot and asking everyone to raise their hand at the same time if they want to be a certain role, which we have done in the past also?
I can totally answer that, because I believe our policy is that we vote for chair, and then we vote for vice chair, and then we vote for treasurer, and then we vote for secretary, and then it's specifically structured that way so that if you stand for chair and you're not successful, you can then say, oh, I want to stand for vice chair. And if you're not successful, you can stand for, so it's to be, make it as, we don't want to block people from doing something.
Totally.
So if people, I think we've informally had discussions about who is interested in doing what, but I think that letting them stew and think and show up and be ready to raise their hand in the moment is maybe a little fairer,
Totally.
From that perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that being a discussion about why we structured it the way that we did in terms of how that EC election procedure was written.
Could we structure in a way that you submit your candidacy for the specific roles that you would be interested in, and then do that rundown, and you just automatically get eliminated based off of, so we don't have both scenarios, we just eliminate people if they get elected to the role before or whatnot?
Yeah. I think it could. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was going to say, if I could add a point of order, just these are, I love looking at all of our policies as living documents, but we are probably too late in the game to change our election procedure for this election. And just to clarify, like, according to the procedure that was passed, it does state that directors shall declare their candidacy at the time of the election for each position by a show of hands. So it would be too late, I think, for this election to veer away from that and do an advance declaration. It is something that I have, personally also proponed and suggested in the past. And I love the idea of trying to do things as deliberately, as strategically, as transparently as possible. But according to our current procedure that's on the books, that is still how we have it, is how it has been done before.
Sure. So then I guess an additional question I would have then, if somebody intended to, a question around what a co-chairship would look like or how that would be handled, whether it would be people choosing to enter the race as a package deal, or two people who get the same amount of votes becoming co-chair, or, because I do love the intentionality behind individuals running as a team or choosing to tackle the role as a team. And I also have no idea logistically what that looks like.
I like that as well, because then you're kind of going into it with a buddy. You kind of have to buddy system up or talk to someone ahead of time. So
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has experience with like any other boards or any other leadership positions that are appointed that way, but from everything that I've seen, like out there in the world, I've never seen an example of co-officers or co-leaders serving as sort of a result of a tie vote or anything like that. But generally what I've observed is that can function really well when folks do sort of collaboratively approach the leadership position as a team and decide to kind of go into it from the get-go that way. So, you know, even if that were to be a discussion that happened pretty impromptu, you know, it's something that could work well, but I don't think there's anything also like built into our election procedures to allow for positions to be split in that way based on balloting, but there's nothing that prevents folks from just sharing responsibility in an intentional way.
So, I mean, if we do want to encourage folks to consider running as a team, how should we communicate that information well ahead of time so that people know that that's an option? And then how should those people express during the moment where we all raise our hands that they're running as a team? Like, should we ask, you know,
You have to hold
individuals
hands.
running, yeah, position your screens next to each other so you can high five. Just want to make sure that we're like thinking through all of this annoying logistical stuff so we don't get there and be like, ah. But yeah.
Yeah, those are good questions and kind of uniquely hard to answer since this is a type of election and meeting different from everyone we've had. And so even harder to predict how that would play out.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we could ask, you know, we should communicate it ahead of time if that's an option for sure. Make sure to send an email saying that that's a thing and to encourage folks to start thinking about it. And also, I think that a way to handle it in the meeting could be to kind of stagger it. So like ask folks, you know, anybody who's interested in running as an individual, raise your hand. Okay, anybody who, you know, any, you know, units, co-chair units, pairs, whatever, teams running.
Just as a
say so in the chat. I don't know.
Right. I was going to say, just as a thought, actually, we could just use all candidates who wish to run for chair in lieu of raising your hand as written in the procedures. Drop your name in the chat.
Drop your name in the chat. I love that.
And then they can indicate their team at the same time as the singles, either way.
Cool.
I mean, honestly, I think that a lot of this discussion will end up being moot because we'll be like, please someone do this job. Show up and do it. Anybody, raise your hand right now.
I'm like worried about having too many people.
Yeah, like,
it's gonna
oh
be
my
that
God,
right.
There's 10 people who want in a chair.
I love the idea
no.
of doing it in the chat. I feel like that allows for a little bit more flexibility and a little less awkwardness. Yeah.
Now we're to do this while we're waiting. I'll
cue it up.
It could be one of those things too, where we just ask everyone not to have their camera on or something too. So it's not like
turn off your
awkward
camera
when
and write your name in the chat.
Yeah, like someone's not covered in a bunch of light and you can't see any of their expressions or anything during the.
Somebody hasn't closed their blackout curtains in their office, in their home office. Yeah. Yeah, I feel good about handling it that way.
I'm going to put this in the notes as adapted procedure. When it comes time to raise your hand, everyone's camera, we ask everyone on the count of 3 to turn off their cameras. And then if you're interested, drop your name in the chat. Is that what we're talking about?
I'm into that. I approve.
I would like to put a note out there to Chelsea. She's an official YouTuber now and a YouTube star with the rest of us. So welcome to the team.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate just being a spectator and yeah, very interesting.
Sorry, I'm committing to the Jeopardy music bit. There we go.
As a totally random aside, I'd be happy to do it myself unless I feel like there was something I'm forgetting that the election committee was already talking about emailing to the candidates. Maybe I'm imagining this. Maybe there was an email forthcoming relating to something, but I feel like we also should send out a copy of our bylaws to the candidates in advance of the upcoming meeting and kind of officership appointments so that, you know, there's some relevant information in there in addition to just those little blurbs that if they so desire to review all of that bland verbiage could get some more context out of that. And
Excellent. Good thinking.
if one of y'all was going to already be sending something out and just wanted to attach that on as well, that's awesome. If you're not, just let me know. I can send it out to everybody too.
Totally. I think we should do that, Sarah. We can take care of that as the election committee, I think. So we should probably send another missive, just letting folks know you are going to be asked to raise your hand shortly. Think about it, you know, with a couple more, just a reminder of the different roles, what the responsibilities are, and the option to run as a co-chairship, as well as what the procedure is going to be, just so everybody is as clear as possible going into it. Would rather send duplicate emails with that information than not enough emails with that information.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and one other thing, I'm sorry, my email has been kind of a swamp lately, so I'm not remembering if any of this has already been mentioned, but also just letting people know what our meeting schedule is, and like as they are coming on as new directors, when our meetings are, because actually in the past I've noticed that that's something that we sometimes overlook, is letting folks know what their time commitment is for the directorship. And if people don't already know that, or maybe it's just another thing to just give a good reminder about, is like, when are our meetings? And then also, when are our executive committee meetings, in case you're running for an officership, know when that time commitment will be. Thank you so much, y'all, for doing all that. It's been incredibly wonderful to have such an awesome group of people taking on all this stuff.
You are so welcome. It's been good. It's been good so far. So. We'll let Maggie kind of catch up on notes there, but I think pending that, I believe that is all the election business we had to cover. Maggie?
Our only last thing we need to do is to approve the agenda, which is going to be called to order, assign the minutes, which will probably be me or maybe Eddie. And then first step of business will be certification of the 2021 Board of Directors election. Second bit of business will be appointing the special directors. Third piece of business will be election of the executive committee. And that's the whole agenda. Any additions? Any comments? Are we good? All right.
Just to clarify, are we going to have consent items in this agenda? I don't think we I can't remember if we usually have.
I don't think we normally have.
Unless there's something time sensitive, it's usually not a meeting that we conduct business in.
Yeah, I feel like those just get bumped to the following month, if memory serves.
I have a question that is maybe separate, but maybe not. Do we have a plan to market the existence of the YouTube stream for our next BOD meeting? Do we have a plan to let folks know that it's happening so that they can tune in and see the election get certified? just in the spirit of having our, I mean, typically we have our annual meeting live, or live in person. Do we have a plan for encouraging folks who voted to tune in? And if not, should we have one?
I think it's a great idea. One thing I would like to investigate between now and then, since we figured out how to stream on YouTube, is how to share that on Facebook. That's probably our biggest.
Yeah, we just have to put a link to the YouTube stream.
Yeah.
You're talking about streaming to Facebook?
Well, I think you can do both simultaneously, but either way.
You can connect to, yeah, you can make that happen.
Yeah, because we have a Facebook page.
Yeah, we could figure out the back end tech stuff of that in our meeting when we go over the polls. I bet with 30 minutes and access to Google, I could figure out how to make it happen for us. So
yeah,
and the right passwords. But
if I could
have all your base are belong to me. Oh
yeah,
dated me, didn't it?
I know that one. You're good.
If I could throw out one more nitpicky little detail for our meeting, for our meeting coming up at the end of the month. In meetings past wherein the winning candidates and standing board members convene, above O'Duffy's for the short operational election and such. It's been the case since I can recall that the previous chair, if reelected, would administer that meeting up until the point of officership elections, at which point, if a new chair was appointed, then the new chair would begin administering the meeting even mid-meeting, if that was the case. Sometimes they would be reelected and continue, but I feel like this would be a good opportunity for us to, instead of doing that, which has always been like a little bit sticky and complicated to do it that way.
Yeah.
To take a more, probably a more like sustainable approach to it and a less awkward approach to it, which is to just allow the election committee to administer the whole meeting. Since there's not any business in it other than election business, and since y'all are going to be doing most of the presenting of information and administering the officership elections and everything, it makes sense to maybe just agree to like having the election committee facilitate the whole meeting.
As 1/3 of the election committee, I would be happy to take on that responsibility, but I cannot speak for the other two.
Well, as the secretary who needs to keep taking minutes either way, I'm fine with that.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Cool.
Thank you.
Who, by the way, was appointed as secretary at a meeting that no one was taking minutes at because there was no secretary. So I think it's a great idea.
As we're talking agenda, though, I think Jen had one item of a non-smoking policy that she was looking to get approved, just because of health concerns from a tenant. So that might be something that I can double back with her and see, but if we could take a look at that and approve that, that might be a good one item to have.
Brendan, do you want, actually, instead of having it at the meeting, do you want to send it out maybe as an email? Because we do have a policy for passing things that have some urgency by an email vote.
Yeah, we can do it by email vote.
Not that we can't,
I think
I just thought like that might be easier and more efficient.
I think it has to be 100% voting by then. So we just have to make sure everyone participates or votes.
Yeah, I can help to administer a digital vote if there is urgency behind getting the policy approved. And I would definitely recommend we do it before the changeover for like the incoming board, just because we've been kind of on this roll with these policies, and I feel like the new incoming board members just will not have had the opportunity to get oriented enough to be like immediately within minutes kind of making a vote on this one way or another. It's a little awkward to try to time it that way. So let's either, I would say, get it timed where we can do a digital vote and get it on the books before everybody, you know, changes over. Or alternatively, if it can come in informational form to all the new board members and then can wait for an approval at the June meeting, we could do it that way too.
Sarah, I'll send you the policy and then we can just send it out to the board for approval.
Great.
That should be fine.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we can't deal with that right now. Forget it. Well, if that's everything, I will call this meeting to a close at 7:08. Thank you, everyone.
Do we have to approve the agenda for the next meeting? Have we done that?
We're usually pretty like,
Okay, cool.
we don't usually vote on it. I don't think.
Okay.
I mean, Brendan and Sarah and Steve, do you want to?
We don't usually vote on it.
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're lucky if we've really solidified the whole thing by the end of the meeting, and
yeah,
we're ahead of schedule. So
Cool.
Thank you all so much. This was so productive. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, a good one. Thanks, everybody. Looking
Thanks,
forward to next time.
Is it terrible that I kind of want to like drive around to like absolutely everyone's house and give them like a cupcake or something to eat at the meeting? So it will be like something sort of fun.
I would say
like
don't put that pressure on yourself, but I would eat a cupcake if it appeared.
I second that. Yeah, that would be amazing, but
if you just want to drop
too
one
much for us to
cupcake off at one house, I would volunteer for that. It's, you know.
I think I would be, I motion to designate Jeremy the dropping off baked goods committee. I feel like that's kind of his
Yeah,
wheelhouse.
he deserves it.
So cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Aaron, do we want
Thanks,
to
everybody.
pick apart a day to do the, I'm going to stop our record and I'm going to turn us off on
Yeah,
live stream.
so-
Goodbye, YouTube.
We are stopped recording. We could, I'm cool to figure that out now. We'll respond. If Steve, you can bounce if you want to. Eddie,
I
if you
think
can
I
stick around, that'd be sweet.
I think I made you host.